over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be in a series that we've entitled 2020 Vision. I know I came up with this myself. It's really clever, and I get all the credit for it. But this is what we're going to be in 2020 Vision. Every church, I would imagine, is probably jumping on the bandwagon with this 2020 Vision. So for the next 3 weeks, this is what we're going to be on. We're going to be talking the next 3 weeks about vision and what God has for our hearts and for our lives and for our church. You know, the reality is that the Bible actually tells us that where there is no vision, the people perish. Another translation says where there is no vision, people wander aimlessly. In other words, when there's no vision, people don't know what to do. So we're going to give our church and all of you a clear vision and look at where we're headed for 2020. Does that sound good? How many think that's a great idea? So here's the thing. If there's ever a Sunday that you want to be at, it's the next 2 or 3 Sundays. Like, you want to be here for these. Because again, we're going to be talking to you about where we're headed and how you play a huge part in where we're headed, all right? So next week, I'll be talking again, and we'll dive into our vision and our culture. And then the week after that, our lead pastor, who just happens to be my dad, his name is Archie. Archie Neal is his name. What an awesome name, right? He will be over here in 2 weeks, and he will be sharing from his heart on where he sees us going as a church in both locations. Does that sound good? Are you for that? Are you with that? Good. So today, to tie into this 2020 vision, I get the opportunity to talk with us really about our personal vision for our own lives. I mean, all of us, I know, when we go into a new year, have probably some sort of resolution that we've already said we're going to do, right? I'm sure all of us are on the same page. All of us going into a new year, man, there's things we need to let go of 2019. We got to change some stuff so 2020 can be everything that God has called it to be and wants it to be, and so my life can be better, right? Are we all on the same page? Okay, so I want to talk with us, though, about the reality that you can have the greatest game plan. You really can. You can have the greatest game plan going into 2020. But if you don't develop what we're going to be talking about this morning, you're probably not going to get very far with what you've had. I mean, come on, how many have ever started off a year saying, this is what I'm going to do, and then it ain't even a month, and you're like, well, I messed that up. Might as well just forget about that. Am I the only one? All right, so all of us have done that, and I believe it's because we set these goals that are coming from a really good place in our heart, but we don't know how to get there. And sometimes we set these huge goals that we're going to achieve in this year, and if this piece of our lives is not where it needs to be, we're never going to get there. We're never going to get there. We're going to start in Psalm 119. This is actually the biggest, longest chapter in the Bible. But Psalm 119, we're going to go from 112, and we're just going to go to 114. We're only going to read just a few verses out of there, and everything we're going to talk about, we're going to build from these 3 or 4 verses. So the psalmist is obviously dealing with something on the inside because he's wanting to change, but something is going on the inside of him, and he's wrestling with himself. He's wrestling with some stuff that he wants to change. And so it says in verse 112, it says, I incline my heart to perform your statutes forever till the end. Notice what he says there, forever to the end. Forever to the end. In other words, the psalmist is saying, I don't want this thing to just happen in my heart and in my life for 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months and then be right back to the same old that I was. He said, I want this to last till the end. This is why I started with the idea that all of us kind of have been here in our lives. I mean, how many have ever signed up for that gym membership at January, talking about you're going to look like, Rambo at the end of the year, when by February your health kick is done because all that Valentine's candy comes out and you're just like, well, forget it. I'm going to eat this chocolate. Am I the only one out there that's ever done that, right? We've all done that. And he's saying, listen, I don't want that to be the case. I want this thing to last. I want this thing to stick. So he says it's interesting that the words that he uses and that he chooses to use, because he says, I incline my heart. Now, I am not the smartest cookie in the jar, but when you incline something, you're taking it out of its natural state. You don't have to incline something that's already upright, right or wrong. Like, you have to incline something that's down, right? So what he's actually referring, what he's saying, whether you catch it or not, is that his heart had to be in decline, because he talks about inclining his heart. So he had to be in a declined position to be using that word. And the problem with a lot of us, even as believers in the world we live in today, we like to have our heart in recline, where it's just like, hey, whatever happens, happens. However I'm feeling in the moment, that's how I'll respond. Whatever my attitude is in that given second, that's how I'll react. That's how I'll respond. And the psalmist says, no way, man, not me. Like, I'm not just going to go by what I feel. I'm going to incline my heart to what God has for my life. I think some of the worst advice, and I believe this is an American cliche, I think some of the worst advice we can give people is, hey, just follow your heart. Just follow your heart. Because what I'm saying, and you will never hear me say that to you in this church. You will never especially hear me tell my kids or anybody that's around me, hey, just follow your heart. Because what I'm saying is, hey, just do whatever feels good. Just do whatever feels good. Can you imagine the trouble you would be in your life up to this point if you just did whatever felt good in the moment? Think about where you would be at the end of 2020 if you just said, hey, just follow your heart, Todd. Just do whatever feels good this year, buddy, and let me know how that goes. You would be in a miserable state, man. So Psalmist says, I incline my heart. You know, your heart is your responsibility. And when I'm talking about your heart, I'm not talking about this thing that's beating inside your chest, although you're responsible for that as well. But what I'm talking about with your heart is your mind, your will, and your emotions. You're responsible for that. Matter of fact, the Bible says that you're in charge of that, to guard your heart, because everything in life flows from your heart. And you don't just incline your heart like one time, right? You don't just incline it one time and then that's it. Like, hey, John, I inclined my heart back to Jesus in church camp when I was 11 and, gave my life to him and I've never been tempted again. Like, we all wish that was the case. We all wish that we could incline our heart one time. Now, I'm not talking about being saved. Once you have given your life to God, you are sealed, stamped, and forever forgiven. Amen? Not talking about that. I'm talking about your heart. Your heart, you have to incline your heart on a regular basis. It's something that you have to continue to do. It would be nice for us to have it like, what was that old info commercial with the, set it and forget it, baby. Just set it and I think it was like a chicken thing. Set it and forget it. We would love for our lives and our hearts to be that. Set it and forget it. Like, John, I showed up to church once this month. Like, that's probably good enough. Like, John, I come and serve once in a while. That should be good enough. Like, John, I read my Bible once a week. Like, that should work. I should be good. Like, John, I show up to work early every once in a while. Like, that should be good enough. I think what the psalmist is saying here to us is that he inclines his heart on a daily basis. That he sets it, and he checks it again. And then he checks it, and then he sets it. And then he checks it, and he sets it. He says, I incline my heart to your statue. What do you want from my life? Because that's what's going to work best for 2020, is when I incline my heart to what Jesus is asking me to do. You got to incline your heart. When it comes to inclining our hearts, if you think about this, you ever met anybody that looks really good on the outside, but they're pretty nasty on the inside? Like, they look like they got their stuff together on the outside, but on the inside, they're a mess. This is true when it comes to just who we are as people, but it's also true when it comes to, like, physical. Like, I've known people that have looked really good on the outside, but physically are dying on the inside, like battling cancer or whatever it may be. They look great on the outside, but on the inside, man, they are having some serious issues. There's a guy in Danville, his name's Frank. He owned a painting store called Frank's House of Color. And we had done business with Frank through our church and even just personally for years, 30-something years we had done business with that guy. And we'd be in there, and we'd see him, and man, nothing looked wrong. Nothing. And I just found out like 2 weeks ago from my dad that, man, that guy showed up to work Wednesday, and Thursday he was dead, and he died of cancer. And nobody even knew. Like, he didn't tell anybody because he looked really great on the outside, but on the inside, he was a mess. He was dying on the inside. And that's pretty serious. So let's lighten it up a little bit. Like, I know you can't really tell now, but I used to do this thing called CrossFit. How many's ever done CrossFit? Now, I look good when I was doing, I look good anyway, but I looked really good when I was doing, I'm kidding if you don't know me. When I was doing CrossFit, man, I felt good. Things were just, worked better on my body. It was great, right? It was just great. But the first couple days I went home and told my wife, because she was there with me, and my wife, if you know her, she's super athletic. She's good at everything. It ticks me off. But we get there, and I get home like maybe day 2 or 3. I said, I'm not going back. And she said, why? I said, baby, guys, there was these, like, I'm talking like muscle-bound, like swole type dudes. I'm talking about dudes that when you're at when you go to work out, like especially right now, if you just got into the gym, they're the type of guys that's like, dude, you won. Like, go home, put the weights down, you won, you're about as big as you're ever gonna get, right? Those type guys. There was even some ladies in there that I'm like, dude, you won, just go home, But I'm like, I'm not going back, babe. I'm going to look like I'm embarrassed. I'm nowhere near where they need to be. But here's the thing about CrossFit. If you've never done CrossFit does require weights. But there's also other stuff you do with CrossFit. You do jump rope, you do box jumps, you can do miles. There's a whole bunch of burpees, which I hate. I think hell is going to be burpees and the devil right there by you. I think that's what hell's going to be. But the reality is that, man, I was shocked, though, because here's the thing is that about day 3 or 4, when I had built my endurance up a little bit, I was actually beating all of these heavy weightlifter guys. Not in the weights, but in the time, because they set a time when you're supposed to have it done. I was beating all of them in the time, because these guys have done everything on the outside to look like they're supposed to, but on the inside, their endurance was like 0. They looked great on the outside, but on the inside, they didn't have much to offer. I don't want to be a person. I don't want to be a community. I don't want to be a church that looks great on the outside, but on the inside, we don't have much to offer. I want us to incline our hearts as a church this year. I want you in your life. I want to challenge you in 2020 to incline your heart to who God has called you to be and wants you to be. For real change to happen in your life, it has to happen on the inside. You agree with me on that? Like, you can change your pattern. You can change some of the stuff you're doing. But if you don't change on the inside, it's probably not going to last that long. It's not going to stick that long. Because real change has to happen on the inside of us. But I want to challenge us this morning, and let me finish before you think I'm teaching something I shouldn't hear. I want to challenge us with the idea that I don't believe it starts there. Oh, it has to happen there. It has to happen on the inside, but I do not believe it starts there, and here's why. I believe our habits actually shape the condition of our heart. Our habits is what forms, and it's what shapes, and it's what structures, and it's what our heart, our mind, our will, and our emotions, it's what it's actually built on is our habits. So yes, it has to happen in the heart, but it doesn't start there. And the next few verses that I want to read to you is the psalmist is actually letting us know how to have a healthy heart. How many want a healthy heart going into 2020? Like physically and what we're talking about here today, spiritually. I want both. I want a physically healthy heart, but I also want a spiritual healthy heart. And yes, it has to happen on the inside. But I want to challenge you with the idea of there's 3 habits that the psalmist talks about that we're getting ready to read. And he lets us know 3 habits of a healthy heart. That's actually the title of my message this morning. It's 3 habits of a healthy heart. And don't be worried that I'm just now getting to the title of my message, even though all of that was my intro. The rest goes pretty quick. Look at Psalm 119, verse 113. It says this, it says, I hate the double-minded. I hate the double-minded. This is psalmist talking. I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. We're going to read a little bit and stop, read a little bit and stop. So we're going to stop there because we need to figure out what he's talking about. He says, I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. I hate the double-minded. In other words, what he's saying is I hate this. I hate the wishy-washy. He's not talking about a person here. He's talking about the condition of being double-minded. He hates the idea that he's going back and forth, like doing this and that, knowing what he should do, not doing it. He hates the idea of being wishy-washy. So the first thing of a healthy heart, and I really, really thought about how I wanted to word this, but this is how I want to do it. And just let me get through this point before you judge me too fast. The first habit of a healthy heart is you got to know what to hate. You got to know what to hate. I know that doesn't sound very pastoral this morning. That's a strong word, but you have to know what to hate. Matter of fact, I would challenge all of us in this place this morning that when it comes to change, hate is a bigger motivator than love. Let that sink for a second. Hate is when it comes to change, hate can be a bigger motivator than love. Let me prove it to you. I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of things in my life. I love the way certain things make me feel at the time, in the moment, but I hate the crash. I hate what it does to my life after that. I love what it does, in other words, for me, but I hate what it does to me. When it comes to hate, what I'm talking about, let me give it to you like this so you stop looking at me like I'm nuts. Here we go. You ready? I love food. I have told my wife, I was 50 pounds heavier before I moved over here. 50 pounds heavier before I moved over here. You say, John, that's not a big deal. Yeah, until you carry it all right here. Like it wasn't proportioned, it was just right here. 50 pounds. So I love to eat. And I've told my wife this even over the last few months. I said, babe, I wish God would have made us where we could just eat whatever we want and nothing happened. Like you just eat. If that's how you chose to live and you just got to eat all this food and you never got bigger, nothing ever happened. You just looked great after you did it. How many are like me and would love for that to be the case? All right, well, it's not the case, right? But here's the deal. I love to eat. I love donuts. I love cookies. I love Nutty Bars. I love Star Crunch. I love pork chops. I love hot dogs. I love donuts. I love pizza. I love steak. If it's not green, I love it. Matter of fact, I heard somebody say one time that every one of us is going to die. I'm just choosing not to die with a bad taste in my mouth. That's all I'm saying. I love to eat. But it wasn't until I got to a place where I hated how I was feeling that I did something about how much I love to eat. I love the way a Cheeto tastes going down my mouth. But I hated what it was doing to my waistline. My wife would say, John, we'll just get you bigger pants. I don't want bigger pants. But it was not until I got to a place where I shifted and I realized how bad I hated how I was feeling, that it shifted my heart to choose to be different in that area of my life. And I got to be honest, I feel so much better now. Do I miss food sometimes? Sometimes, but it doesn't compare to how I feel physically now. You got to know what to hate. I know it's strong. I know it doesn't sound very pastoral this morning, but you got to know what to hate. Matter of fact, why don't you look at your neighbor just to make it really uncomfortable in here and say, you got to know what to hate. Now, don't tell them that you hate them because we'll all be in trouble. But you got to know what to hate. You got to hate self-pity. You got to hate self-pity. You have to be at a place in your life where, listen, self-pity tastes good. It feels good sometimes to sit around and talk about my problems and how bad my life is and how messed up my life is and how big my problems are compared to your problems. And it feels good to unload that on people. But I hate the fact that the next time that person sees me, they're running in the complete opposite direction because they're sick of listening to me cry. Come on. Listen, I got a love-hate relationship with anger. I do. I'm a pretty vulnerable guy, and you'll get to know that. I got a love-hate relationship with anger. I love the fact that I've been given the illusion that the louder I get, the more I can control the room. The more angry I get, the more I have control. I love the fact that I can snap at my kids, yell, raise my voice to my kids, get them to do what I want, but I hate the fact that it sucks the life out of them right in front of me. I used to, and my wife was sitting here, she would testify to this. I am a completely different guy. But I used to love the fact that I thought I could control my wife with anger. That in arguments, the louder I got, the more hateful I got, the more angrier I got, the more I felt like I could control what was going on. But I hated the fact that it kept pushing my wife further and further and further away from me. You got to hate. You got to hate it. You got to hate it. It can be a bigger motivator than love. How many get real with me and say, hey, man, I kind of like to talk about people sometimes, John? Like it makes my dysfunction seem less when I talk about their dysfunction. Like when I talk about Sally's kids and how her kids remind me of Little Rascals and Bebe's kids, it makes my kids not look so bad, right? Or, hey, how about when, when Johnny messed up last week, it can make me, and I talk about that to somebody, it can make me feel better about myself and the mess up that I had last night. But if you're anything like me, like when I talk about someone, the next time I'm around them, what I hate about that is I hate the fact that I can't treat them any better than how I just talked about them. Man, I know you didn't show up to church to hear this. Happy New Year, I guess, but this, I'm telling you, this will help you. I promise you this. If I know it sounds strong, I know it sounds hard, I might be stepping on your toes, but the reality is that there is a healthy kind of hate. It sounds weird, but there is a healthy kind. I'm not talking about hating people. There is a healthy kind of hate. Let me give you an example. I hate racism. I hate racism. I can't stand the fact that because of the color of your skin, you still get treated differently than what you should be in America. I hate that. I hate it. Let me tell you what will not happen in this church. We will never be a church that by the color of your skin determines what you can do. Because here's what we know. Here's what we know. God loves all people. Y'all remember that song? Yellow, black, and white. They are precious in His sight. I don't care what color you are. You matter to God and you matter to us. You were made that color for a reason, and we're grateful for it. I hate racism. I hate bullying. I hate bullying. Anybody got any kids that's been bullied, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I hate bullying. I hate the idea that, I've got 3 kids. 2 of them have had grown up at times being bullied. And let me tell you something. You want to talk about punching a 10-year-old? That'll make you want to punch a 10-year-old. I hate bullying, man. I hate the idea that our kids should be jumping on a bus that should be fun, that should be going to a place where they can be developed and learn, and they have to worry about who's going to pick on them that day. I can't stand bullying. I hate bullying. You got to get to a place where you're okay with having a healthy kind of hate. You got to get to a place where you hate, like the psalmist, you hate the wishy-washy. It feels good in the moment, but the after effect, it's not so good. Y'all with me so far? The next 2 are pretty easy, I promise you. Number 2 is this. You got to know where to hide. You got to know where to hide. I have to know where to hide. Do you know where to hide? Let me tell you what I'm sure of more than anything I'm talking to you about today. I am sure, saved, not saved, know Jesus, don't know Jesus very long. Let me tell you what I'm sure of. In this world, you're going to face some trials. In this world, in 2020, you're going to have some junk try to come your way. You're going to have some stuff come up in your marriage. You're going to have some stuff come up in your relationships. You're going to have some stuff come up in your finances. You're going to have some stuff come up at work. And you are going to have the opportunity to let your heart go into decline mode. You're going to have an opportunity to get your heart into an area where you're just functioning by whatever you feel, however the moment is going, right? But the psalmist says, no way. I incline my heart and I know where to hide. Do you know where to hide this morning? You better. And you better know before the junk comes your way. Because if not, you'll probably, more than likely, try to hide in an area that you shouldn't be hiding in. Stuff from the past, stuff that you thought you've overcome. If you're not ready to know where to hide, you'll go back to the same place that you were hiding before. The psalmist says this. He says, you are my hiding place. You are my shield. Yes. Where do you hide? You hide under the wing, the shadow of the Almighty. the enemy is having a whole lot more of a challenge tripping me up in my life over the last 5 or 6 years. You know why? Because I am learning how to hide and where to hide. When the struggles of life come my way, I know where to hide. I've known Jesus my entire life. I was raised in church. I grew up in church. I know all the church lingo. I know all of that stuff. I know the behind the scenes. I've grown up in this. But for so many years, I tried to find my hiding place in stuff that did not last. And honestly, was stuff that in a moment felt like a safe place to hide, I guess, but ended up having a whole lot of destruction in my life. Where are you hiding? When 2020 hits this year, where are you going? Where are you hiding? You better know where you're hiding. Maybe for some of you, your hiding place is gossip. When you have an opportunity, man, it just makes you feel good to talk about somebody else, to talk about how, maybe their life is compared to your life. Maybe some of us hide in blame. I think this is big. Listen to this. I think this is huge. Y'all care if are you good? Are you good? Some of us hide in blame. Every time you're confronted in an area to change, you get mad at God and everybody else because of past stuff and hurts, and we get it. I get it, man. I've been there. I get hurts. I know what that is. I'm not making light of your hurts, but if we continue to blame, we will never change. And it's a real good hiding place for some of us because it stops us from having to change because it's easier to blame somebody else. Maybe your hiding place is anger. Maybe that's a safe place for you when you feel like you're losing control. Maybe it's work. Maybe you invest way too much time into work because it keeps your mind off things. It keeps your mind off of where it should be and being there for family and supporting family. Maybe your hiding place is destructive thinking or dysfunctional thinking where no matter what it is, it's negative. Maybe it's video games. I'll let that one sit for a second. Because that's not just a youth problem, I'll assure you. I've counseled with people in our church who are losing their spouse over a video game. You know why? They're not choosing to do that because they don't love their spouse. It's a safe place for them to escape from the world. They think it is. Maybe it's social media. Maybe your safe place is jumping on Facebook or Instagram and makes you feel important, but I'm just telling you, maybe it's an addiction. Maybe when trials hit, when struggles hit, maybe your way of finding a safe place is in a bottle. Maybe it's in a drug. Maybe it's with porn. Can I be real with you this morning and tell you, I've experienced just about every single one of those things I just labeled, and none of them are a safe place to hide. Oh, they give the illusion for a moment, but none of them are a safe place to hide. The only safe place we have to hide is under the shadow of the Almighty. When we come up under Him, and we say, Father, I trust you. I give you this situation. I give you my life. I'm going to remain present in my day. I'm not just going to go tuck and hide and find somewhere to get away. I'm going to trust you knowing that you have good things in store for my life. That's when we can get to a place knowing that we are safe. We can lay our heads down at night in peace, knowing that our Heavenly Father is right there with us. Y'all ever play hide and seek growing up? I'm almost done. Got 8 minutes. Y'all ever play that? Anybody play hide and go seek growing up? I mean, we can do it today. This would be a great place to play hide and go seek. If y'all are down, we can remind ourselves how much fun hide and go seek was. I wasn't very good at hide and go seek. I'll just be honest. I'm too loud. I talk too much, and I would rather carry on a conversation than hide. But my buddy, and he's here today actually, and I was so glad he is because this makes it even more real. But my buddy David is in the house. David grew up with me, so if I ever tell a story and I'm lying about something, he'll call my cards on it. But David would have awesome parties at his house, like amazing parties at his house. They were all clean. We read Bible the whole time, and it was amazing. But But he would have these parties, and one night we were having a party. We were just talking about this, made me think about it just a few weeks ago. He was having a party. We were all out playing hide and go seek, doorbell ditch, whatever. And one of our buddies, really one of his good buddies named Dusty Cash, went to go hide. And we all were kind of around in the same area. Next thing you know, you kind of hear and see Dusty running across the street over to David's house, holding his hand, obviously in a lot of pain. I mean, he's probably 16 at this time. He's not no little boy. Like, he's in a lot of pain. And I'm like, man, what's going on? We all get back to the house. Well, Dusty found what he thought was a great hiding place. And it really kind of was, until he stuck his hand in a bee's nest that was down in there. Am I lying, Dave? Right down into a bee's nest. And I got to thinking about that. What looks so good sometimes as a hiding place, there can be something right there that the enemy wants to just hit us with. Here's a funny one. You can call me a jerk if you want to. I played hide and go seek with my kids maybe twice. Maybe. Oh, I'm going to sound like a jerk. You're going to be like, John, I can't believe you did that. I was not going to find my kids hiding in the same place over and over and over again. All right? Like, okay, hide, go hide. All right, you're under the sink. All right, I know. All right, I did it like twice. I'm like, nope, this is a stupid game. Daddy's done. Let's play basketball. Let's do something else. But I got to thinking about that too, because the idea that why is it that we run back to some of the same hiding places and expect the enemy not to catch us right there in it? We run back to the same stuff and wonder why our year don't get no better. Psalmist says, not me, no longer. This is going to last to the end. I'm going to incline my heart on a daily basis. I'm going to choose to hide in your presence on a daily basis. And when I do, when you do, watch how God elevates your life. Watch. And it becomes a whole lot easier or harder for the enemy to try to trip you up. Not that he won't try, but it becomes a whole lot harder for him to trip you up. This is my last one. You got to know how to hope. I have to know how to hope. Notice that the psalmist doesn't say in this verse that I have hope, but he says, I hope.